Our first speaker is going to be Raylene Casey from the University College Cork. It's actually a public holiday there, so Raylene's doing us a huge favour by coming in on a day off. And Raylene, if you're ready to start sharing your screen, please take it away.
I will. Here we
I can
go.
see it coming up.
Is it
See your
view?
whole desktop there. I've got your authoring view there.
Oh dear. Okay.
That's all right.
Let's change that around. Okay. Try again.
We've got a sneak preview of what's to come.
This might happen again. Is that the same thing?
Just coming up. No, that's the opening slide.
That's it. Okay.
So,
Okay. Hopefully that'll be the one and only mistake. So yes, my name is Raylene Casey. I'm the digital archivist in the Boo Library in UCC, University College Cork in Ireland. So I'm going to take you through a workflow that I've devised I've been here just over a year. And it's basically a kind of a first steps workflow to try and gather information until in order to make further choices, digital preservation choices. So just to explain what the scope of the content that goes into that this workflow is for. So I'm dealing with the collections specifically that are in the Special Collections and Archives Department, the digital collections there. And it's legacy data that's accumulated in the library over the last 15 years. It's mostly digitized material, either internally from various reprographics or projects or digitized material, externally digitized material. So I'd say about 90% of the collections that we're dealing with here is digitized material. And then over the last 4 or 5 years, some born digital material had started to come in. When I started, it was roughly about 10 to 12 terabytes of material that was on storage that was kept by the university. It's all on-prem, not rated, so not backed up in any way. And then also some SharePoint storage as well. So I really wanted to kind of act quickly to get the material safe. But the purpose of the workflow, was to be blunt, was to buy myself some time to get to know the collections better. So it's about like creating a short to medium term workflow so that I could make sure that whatever preservation or management decisions around the digital objects would be collections driven. To get a fuller understanding of what the contents were, what the size was, what the risks were, what different types of formats, and then to be able to project as well what kind of material was going to be coming in over the next 5 or 10 years. And the way to do that, essentially, I can't do that without making sure that the material is safely and securely stored and backed up with fixity and made sure that it's safe for the short to medium term. So essentially, this is kind of what I wanted to do was, first of all, to build a digital asset register and to try and get as much information as I could that would inform these decisions onto that digital asset register. So I wanted to get from A to B. So this kind of collected backlog of data that was on a near attached storage, a NAS, get it onto a digital register, and then get it into a sort of ordered way and backed up with fixity at least 3 times. And perform some basic preservation actions to ensure that the material was safe while I was making these decisions. So the way to do that, or the way that I wanted to do that, was to assess what I had. Like, so just to say that like the material was mostly in folders, and they were quite well. There was good. The folders were, named descriptively. So I wanted to assess each folder, so they were kind of named after collections or projects or stuff like that. So when I say assess, I'm talking about assessing each of the folders or directory that's on this NAS, package it up into a kind of form of a temporary pre-ingest information package, back it up, and then register it. So the way I decided to go about it was to create some open source scripts to go at this the sort of customized way. And I don't code myself. So we have an internship program here in UCC in the library. So I engaged a UCC student, Abhijit Rao, who was a master's in data science student, and he came in and worked over the summer, and together we developed these scripts, which is available up on GitHub, with to facilitate the workflow that we devised. He wrote the scripts and we tested them out as we went along. So he came in the summer. There was a certain amount of the workflow had already been devised within a kind of an iterative process before then. But then when he came in, we sort of made it a bit more concrete, at which point as well, I had been introduced to Brunhilde. Apologies now, I don't know, I call it Brunhilde, some people call it Brunhild. And I was able to change the workflow then to incorporate Brunhild into the information packages that we were creating. So I just want to take you through what the workflow within these scripts are. So the first thing is a script called folder summary.py that gives information based on the extension of the files within the folder. So we're looking at formats, but we have to be careful because the format is identified by the extension, which isn't always correct. But it gives us a very basic summary of what's in any given folder that we look at. So it has the extension, the size, and the count. We'll take a look at that now, but just to say, in the meantime, I would have performed fixity on the NAS and kept fixity copies of any of the material that I was going to be looking at. So here's a view of what this folder summary.py script looks like. So you can see there that on the left you have file types, so it shows all the different file types that are within any folder, the file counts, and then the total size for each of those formats. So because most of the collections here are digitizations or photographic collections, I can, and with the kind of, educated knowledge that I already have, I know that the formats that I'm really looking at here are the JPEG, PSD, and TIFFs, and that the other formats are, I can investigate this further later, but are potentially supporting or supplementary formats that are sort of a supplementary metadata that would go along with that. But you can see as well that, there's only a certain amount of work that this script can do because there's 43 unknown files there. And again, the caveat that this is formats based on extension and not actually fully identified yet. So the next step is packaging. So Abhijit created this script IP creator. So the idea is I wanted to create an information package. I can't call it an ape because it's not being ingested yet. It's kind of closer to a SIP, but it's a temporary interoperable package. I'll show you a picture of it now in a minute. But it's so that that later on it can be adapted and put into a bigger preservation solution. It's relatively interoperable. And this script pulls in other tools, so characterization tools, EXIF tool or media info, depending on what type the material is, and then also has the option to bring in Brunhild and Jehove identification tools and virus checking. So the result with that then is an information package, and then you have the metadata that EXIF tool or media info gives. So that's technical and creation metadata, but also the identification that you can get from Brunhilde and Jehove. So just to say that, like, obviously, because at the very beginning, the folder summary.py just gives a very basic understanding of what's in a folder. You could also potentially run Brunhilde directly on it, or there's also another script that Abhijit developed that's basically just pulling out all the metadata that the IP creator.py would, but it doesn't turn it into an information package. At this point, I'd just say that the IP creator is creating packages to kind of enter into each package represents an entry in the digital asset register, and these are kind of divided up or separated by format. So what goes into the IP creator.py is a format. So I would look at a folder and see that there is JPEGs and TIFFs and PSDs, and I would choose one of those formats to pull into the information package created. So this is like an example of the IP creator.py help page, which shows the different arguments or help output that shows the different arguments that go into the script. So it's choosing format, and I would choose whether it's a JPEG or TIFF that I want to wrap up into this package. A UID, which is taken from the digital asset register. If there's anything there that I'm pretty sure needs to go with that as a supplement, like an Excel file or something like that, I'll pull that into the package as well. But I might also create another package around that supplement just in case that's actually the preservation material. KFS is really important. So it's keep folder structure. So it means that if I have a collection that has a folder structure that might be meaningful, then I'm keeping that folder structure within the ape that I'm creating. So I'm not losing any of the information that might be there within the folder structure or the folder names or any of that. And then the options to bring in Jehove and Brunhilde are in there as well. So for the most part, I choose to bring them in. And then this is what the information package looks like. It's basically would have the it's named for the UID on the digital asset register. It has metadata, objects, and supplement. And then this is on the right there, it's opened up, and you can see that within the metadata, you have a merged CSV that takes in all of the EXIF tool information. I'll show you that in a minute. Jehove information is in there, and then a folder with all the Brunhilde information, including Siegfried. I don't have bulk extractor, and that's just because of the operating system my preservation workstation is running on. I'm hoping to get bulk extractor soon. And then you can see within the objects folder that the original folder structure is kept. And then at the supplements down there at the end, and then all of this is wrapped up with fixity. So the next important thing is to copy this into 3 different locations. So this is all very short term and medium term. So the first location is a RAIDed direct attached storage that's attached to the preservation workstation. And then in the meantime, and this is a very short term solution, I have it on 3 different hard drives apart from that RAIDed storage. So this is just to make sure that they're safe. Hard drives are not obviously a long-term sustainable solution. I'm hoping to get an LTO drive soon, so at least one of them is on LTO. But this again, like I perform fixity pretty regularly, fixity checks, but this is, you know, a medium-term solution until I can get to a longer term solution. And then the identification and technical creation information that I've gotten from the information package. So from Brunhilde and from EXIF tool are taken out and put into the DAR, into the digital asset register. So this is what the digital asset register looks like. I call it the digital object register. And this is on SharePoint, which SharePoint lists, which I find extremely handy because you can pivot it around to create tables. And also, yeah, it's great. And then just to explain how I'm filling this in is Brunhilde takes the various different um, uh, tools that go into it, like Siegfried and ClamAV and bulk extractor, which I don't have, and prints it all out in a lovely HTML report. I should thank Niamh Murphy from UCD who alerted me to this and wrote a blog about it. And so this information here, like it can say what what the total files are, the total size. It also shows any duplicates. Gives me straight away the earliest year, the earliest date, the latest date, the identified formats, and then it gives me the file formats all, very nicely already into MIME types, and lets me know if there's duplicates. So on this one particular one, there's 10 files, but there's 2 duplicates, so there's actually only 8 distinct files. And then also what Abhijit did was when he exports out an EXIF tool on a CSV of every individual file that's within an information package, and then he merges that together. So I can very quickly look and see file size, earliest date, image width, uncompressed RGB, lots of different information there, and that's all wrapped up in the information package. But I push that then into the digital object register. So there's lots of different fields on the digital object register, but these are the ones that I'm taking from the HTML and the CSV. And then I can also, I then make this available. So it's a quick search for my colleagues in special collections and archives. If they're looking for a particular collection to see if it's digitized, they can check on this register and then come to me to access it. And then I can also directly attach the HTML report and the CSV onto these records so that they can have a look at them as well if they need to. So that's the full workflow as it is at the moment. The next steps then after this would be later on this year to do some appraisal of what's there. So there's lots of duplicates. I said there's about 10 terabytes there, but actually, as you break it down, it's actually more like 4 terabytes. So it's not a huge amount of material so far. Then assess the risk, have a look at the different files that are there and how old they are, or uh, what sort of risk is attached to the different collections that are there. Then use the digital asset register and all the information that I've gathered for advocacy. Later on, I'll work on a born digital submissions workflow, and then all of this will sort of work towards me trying to figure out how, with the team to gather data that will inform requirements gathering for a digital preservation solution. But also in terms of advocacy, helping the library understand, taking into account total cost of collections stewardship to make sure that as we continue digitally collecting, that we understand the cost of taking in different formats, and that whatever preservation solution we choose in the end, that it is collections driven and focused on the collections that we have. Okay, that's just want to there's some information there. There's the GitHub page. There's the blog that Niamh Murphy wrote that I contributed to. And then I've added in the IFI scripts there because I use that for fixity and copying. And that's me, if anybody has any questions.
Wow, thanks, Raylene. That was a great way to get us started. Lots of detail, lots of interesting information in there. Can I just ask everyone to show their thanks to Raylene in the usual way? Anna's kicked it off. If you go down to the React button, you should get an option to sort of do some applause, and that's always silent but appreciated, I think. So, but before I ramble on too much more, has anybody got any questions or comments they'd like to make in response to what they've heard from Raylene? Either turn on your camera and uh, speak up, or feel free to put a question in the chat. And I see my colleague Jenny's already beaten the rush there. So she's saying it's a great example of using an intern to create the scripts that you need. Just wondering if your knowledge of Python has improved as a result. Would you be able to make minor edits to the script, or would you be looking to get more resource in the future? And I guess that's kind of a question about the maintenance of those scripts, isn't it?
Yeah, so yeah, I do know enough to make minor edits myself, and I have. Thanks for the question, Jenny. And yes, I plan to have to engage another. So there's an intern with me working with me at the moment who also can code, but he's just working on some of the processes. And then I'm planning to get another intern or ask another intern to work in the summer on some of the born digital workflows. But I'm kind of aware about the sort of lack of sustainability that can happen if this GitHub page eventually goes unsupported. And again, it's that's okay because this is very much a temporary sort of stopgap buying time for me. And I won't continue to use it in the long term. However, if people are, interested in it, want to use it, want to support it, want to get involved, or just use it as a way of getting ideas, then that'd be great.
Thanks, Raylene. Lucy's put a quick note saying, could you see your email address about whether you do some consultancy? Don't know how easy that would be, but we can always put you in touch with Raylene, or pretty sure she's available on LinkedIn. And if you just Google her at UCC, you'll pick up her address that way, Lucy, if that'll help. But Scott has asked possibly a less financially rewarding question, which is how will the bulk extractor help your workflow?
Well, bulk extractor scans your material for any sensitive information that might affect access. So it's a big help in terms of risk assessment and understanding how you need to make the material available or not. So yeah, I'm looking forward to getting that in. I see there that somebody has asked about where the interns are coming from. So I'm in Boole Library in UCC. So we open up the internship program to any UCC students. And it's been really successful. This is just the second iteration of it. So it's within the UCC University itself.
And just in relation to that, I'd say that yeah, if you're working at a university, getting hold of interns, it's quite a good way to do it because obviously you've got contacts. But I've seen messages posted out on some of the lists as well, or putting calls for interns to work on things because those sorts of computer science courses are often looking for places to place interns. So that's can be a ripe source of people looking to test out what they've learned and do some work for you. But Yarrick has said, what are the plans regarding the size of the resource and its scalability?
No plans to make it any bigger than and for it to be for it to run its purpose in terms of the short to medium term needs that we had here in UCC to get the start of the archive going, kind of the nascence. At the same time, I wanted to share it to see if it was going to be helpful to anyone else who might come into an organization in a similar situation, or for an archivist who didn't have any digital archiving background that wanted to get started. Obviously, you'd need a certain amount of IT experience, but again, if you have people to help you, or interns or whatever. But it's just kind of, I guess the main thing that I wanted to do was to show that you don't have to go straight into looking for a digital preservation solution or requirements gathering or procurement, that if you get to know your collections better and you start to understand and make sure that whatever decisions you're making are collections driven, and that this sort of solution is just helping me buy time to do that.
And could I just ask a quick? I didn't get a sense of like the timeline for all of this. How kind of how long has it taken you from having the idea that this is the way you were going to go to sort of having the intern to being where you are now?
So I started just over a year ago, and I'm pretty much finished the digital asset register more or less. But that's I haven't been working full time on this. We've been developing out a digitization program and a metadata program as well. Um, and I kind of see it as a 3 year project to try and at the end of that 3 years be in a position where we're looking at finding a long-term digital preservation solution. But then this is all running alongside the sort of strategic plans of writing a digital preservation policy and building a business case and all of that.
Which I guess has actually just been picked up by Sandra. We'll come back to Yong Lee's question in the chat. Said, how heavily did you involve your institution's IT department, and how does it fit in with your organization's overall like digital preservation strategy?
So I'm lucky that I work in the IT department, in the not the institution's IT department, but in the library's digital systems department, which is library IT. Haven't involved the university's IT department yet, but I'm meeting with them next week. They've asked to meet. The institution in general, what like the meeting next week is about trying to start a kind of working group around digital preservation. So the library itself has an institutional repository, so there's digital preservation happening there. But other than that, I'm the first person who's working on digital preservation within the library, but probably also the institution. I'm not quite sure about that, the university.
Okay. Okay. And just going back to Yong Lee's question, they were asking about your decision to kind of essentially build the system yourself rather than just using something like Bit Curator. Was there thinking behind that?
Um, no, there wasn't. I mean, there was. I wanted it to be uh customizable or yeah, I wanted to customize it for what I wanted. I looked at Bit Creator much later down the line, and I haven't fully looked at it yet, and maybe that's a I've missed out on something there, but um no, and again, it's just short to medium term. So like as we build into looking at a digital preservation solution, then we might look at like a hybrid combo of open source um and vendor led. But yeah, we'll see down the line.
Oh, thanks, really. Well, you'll have to come back in a year or two's time at another workflow webinar and tell us
Sure, I'd be
what you're going
delighted
to
to.
next.
Thanks
Thank
so
you for
much.
getting off on such a great start. Thank you.
Cool.
I'm
Thank
going
you.
to let you off the hook now, if that's all right.